Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel. JS DWAYNE here. Today's date is April the 25th, 2021, and it's going to be April the 26th soon. In today's video, I'm going to talk about my experiences being homeless, and I never talk about stuff like this before in my videos because, I always wanted to save room about topics that I really want to talk about, and, I was homeless about nearly 10 years ago, and it was a struggle, and I didn't really have nobody to be there for me. And, I had my own apartment at the time when I was living in Rochester, back many years ago because I've been on and off, living in Rochester for like 12 years, almost 12 and a half years since I was 17 years old because, as I mentioned in my other videos, I was about 17 years old when I first came to Rochester back in 2005, coming from a runaway shelter that my mother put me in back when I was younger because I was out of control. So that's how I came to Rochester. So I've been on and off, living in Rochester so far for 12 and a half years. And I lived mostly 9 years living here in Hamlin. So, being homeless, being kicked out, was just not good for me at all. And I was homeless for a couple of days, and I used to work at this temp agency called Labor Ready, back in the day. And Labor Ready is no longer in business now. They closed it. I don't know why they closed it, but it was a way for people to get quick money who are struggling, looking for regular jobs. And back in the late 2000s, it was hard, looking for regular jobs because during that time it was the recession. And when I came back from Buffalo to live in Rochester, and especially when I moved there, because during that time I actually withdrew from college because I lost my mother, and my father didn't really help me get through my mom's death. It was just drama, and I was mourning, and I was still going through it during that time. So when I arrived in Rochester, I was supposed to work back at Kmart, but they wasn't looking for anybody. So I was out of a job, and that's how Labor Ready came towards my direction because my dad used to work for them before he had his job, at the college in Rochester. I'm not gonna mention what college that he works at, but is one of the famous college that is being mentioned here in Rochester, New York. And, during that time, I was making my money and stuff like that. And I think that one night, I think I was 22 years old. Yeah, I believe I was 22. And, during that time, my father wasn't that accepting towards me being who I am. So, the way that he was putting me down and stuff, I told his ex-girlfriend at the time, who now is my godmother. I'm not going to say her name, but she's my godmother now. I was telling her, I think the way that he was putting me down, I think that maybe my dad might be gay or bi based on the way that he was putting me down and just saying horrible things about me, about being who I am. So during that time, I think she told him, and then my father was trying to, fight me. And I'm like, I don't want to put my hands on my own father. And I'm a lot taller than him. My dad is 5'6". I'm about nearly 6 or 7 inches taller than me, and I don't want to put my hands on my father. And I have respect for my own parents. So I just didn't want to put my hands on him. But he was very forceful, and I felt like he was about to punch me. And we actually fought, and I actually had him down on the ground. And when that happened, I think a few seconds later, the guy was trying to chase me with this machete, and it was like a wooden one. So I didn't know what to do. I ran out of the house, afraid for my life, and it was just a very frightening situation because I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to fight anyone with a machete. Anything crazy can go down, and I believe I was 22. And this was a week and a half, I think almost 2 weeks after I got myself into a nasty altercation with this one guy. And that situation actually landed me in a hospital. landed me in the hospital. So it was just a very bad situation, but I'm not going to tell that situation because it was a very personal type of situation. And that guy who actually punched me actually violated his probation. And I'm not going to get towards that situation. But, when he chased me with that machete, my own dad, you know, I ran out of the house, you know, didn't know where to go to, and my father was trying to chase me, around, with his car. He was trying to tell me to come back in the house and stuff like that. I didn't mean to do it, and I didn't even believe this guy. So I was like, Dad, you're a horrible father. I don't even want to look at you. Like, you're just horrible. I just cannot believe that you do that to me. Like, seriously. And nobody in my family don't know that he did that to me. And this was 10, 11 years ago. So I didn't really tell, immediate family that happened to me because it was a frightening situation and I didn't really know what to do. So I went to police. I went to the police office in downtown Rochester, which is in downtown. I went to the police office and then I was telling them what was going on and stuff like that. And I'm kind of afraid of my life because I got myself into altercation and my father had a machete. So I didn't mention the whole entire situation, but I have nowhere to go to. So, and this was a little bit after 11 o'clock at night, almost towards 12 midnight. So I was kind of homeless. I was in a homeless type of situation, and they actually put me at a homeless shelter. The police put me at a homeless shelter for men. That winter. It was like early winter. It was that January. So this was January 2010 when this whole entire altercation happened, and I went to a homeless shelter, and I don't like sleeping, in homeless shelters at all. It was very frightening, and the only thing that they had was like so many different beds. It was one man on top of the other man. It was a bunk bed, and the only thing that saved that homeless shelter was like it was more like leather. It was a leather bed compared to those regular sheets because with those regular box spring and mattresses and stuff like that is very nasty, and some homeless men carry bacteria on them, so it's like it's really hard to really clean those type of mattresses and box spring and to steam it down and to sanitize it and clean it because when you sleep on those sheets and stuff like that and pillows, you actually have to strip everything down. And when you strip them down, you have to put them on top of the bed that you're laying on so that people that works there can actually clean them and be able to use them for the next set of people that comes in the next day. And I'm like to myself, it's just very nasty to me because I never been in that type of situation. And back then I had $50 in my pocket, so I was able to get by for like a few days and stuff like that. And I didn't even return home at all until like 3 days later after that situation. So I didn't even know what to do. It was like when I left there, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. It was 8 o'clock when I left the homeless shelter, and I was just hanging out in the city all day with $50 in my hand, and I had to get something to eat, so I had pizza, for breakfast and lunch and stuff like that. So I didn't even work at that time. I was working at a temp agency to make ends meet for myself, and I was struggling to pay my phone bill. And when I came back the third day, they didn't let me in because I was a little too late. And what can I do? And I had no choice to go back to my father's house the third day. And I didn't even want to talk to him at all. And he was trying to say what he wanted to say to me, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember what he said. So I had, food there and the food was okay. It wasn't the best, but at least I had something to eat that day and I slept, a little bit and it was just so much that I remember back then. And then I remember, I think a couple years later down the line in 2011 or 2012, I got myself into a situation where I, was on public assistance, like who wasn't? Like there's many people that struggle to pay for their rent or have food stamps for them to survive, for food to eat. So, during that time, I was working at Macy's during that time and, my landlord found out that, I had a regular job because, DSS cut me off. And I have no shame to say that I was on DSS for a while because most of the people that lives in my father's hometown of Rochester, 80% of them is mostly on public assistance, and a lot of people here in Rochester area has no shame. And I don't live in the city anymore. I haven't lived there in almost 9 years, and I survived for myself for a while there. And they cut me off, and I had a hard time paying my rent. And the landlord actually took me to court, and I had to move out of my apartment. I had nowhere to go to, so I went to the same homeless shelter that I went to 2 years ago, and it was just a mess. And when I went there, the people was nice, and I felt how it feels to be homeless. And I didn't really have like much clothes on me at all. I wore jeans, a shirt, a clean piece of underwear, and clean socks and stuff like that. And my hair wasn't styled or nothing. I always cut my hair off all the time. I didn't know what to do with my hair because my hair was just so difficult to deal with. But I know how to style my hair nowadays compared to back then. And it's not that hard nowadays because I've been, trimming my hair and cutting my hair for the last 9 years. And when it comes to doing your own hair, you have to practice and practice and practice. And it wasn't that easy, trimming my hair back then. But I got better with it, years to come, and it's not that bad if you ask me. But I prefer a professional to cut my hair. But when I was at the homeless shelter, the people was nice. The people there was able to give you a very positive message, and a lot of them just tell you to keep on going, never give up. You know, stand up for yourself and be the best person that you can be. And when I went there the second time, I think the second day that I was there, they didn't let me in because I was late and I was working at my job. So what could I do? So I had to go back to my regular apartment that I was living in the city of Rochester back then. And I'm not going to tell the street that I was living in back then, but it was hard, and I had to work my regular job. And the homeless shelter that I was going to wouldn't let me in. And I think the homeless shelter that I went to back then was Open Door Mission, and that was a men's shelter. And I don't know the name of the homeless shelter for women. Like, I don't know at all. I have no idea. But where I'm from, they have Salvation Army has shelters for men and women, but I think they separated is not co-ed because the homeless shelters here in Rochester, they separate them and they're not co-ed either. But my female friend, my best female friend, um, Nessa, she when she had her son many years ago, she went to a women's shelter, and I don't know the name of it. I never been to that women's shelter before, the homeless shelter that she was in, because she was homeless for a while. So I don't know the name of the shelter that she went to many years ago. I have no idea. I'll probably have to ask her, another day, because I haven't seen my best female friend in about a year and a half due to this pandemic. And I think it's very risky seeing everybody at this time, but I can't wait for everything to clear so I can see my friends all over again. Because to be brutally honest with you, I really miss them, and I haven't seen them in so long, and it's kind of depressing if you ask me. But I've been in homeless shelters about twice in my life, and I really hated it. And I just didn't like how the way that I was living back then, and I'm like, really get me out of there, because there's numerous of homeless people that live in homeless shelters, because a lot of people, most of them, homeless people have a hard time surviving out in the streets. And there's some people that at begs for change and stuff like that to survive. And back then I was a little ignorant. I was like, why can't they go on public assistance, or do apartment searching? Probably in their situation is very hard. I don't know nothing about their upbringing. I don't know what happened. And, it's a struggle, and there's homeless children too. And I would never think that. And sometimes it saddens me to seeing a kid on the street. like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 year old, even 12, or even a teenager homeless. Like it breaks my heart seeing that, and seeing a kid on the street. That has to be a struggle. I just feel sad. Sometimes I want to tear down a little bit, cry a little bit, because it's hard seeing a kid on the streets. And you know, me being homeless as an adult, that was a struggle. You know what I mean? A lot of people think that didn't struggle throughout my life. Yes, I did. I've been in homeless shelters. I've been in foster care, and I just recommend a kid not to ever go in foster care at all. There's people that get, abused mentally, physically, sexually, and it's just not good. And, there's some foster care homes that, treat children fine. And there's some that adopt, kids like that. But in my situation, I just don't recommend foster care for everybody because we don't know the predicaments that happens within foster care or being homeless. And I've been in homeless shelters twice in my life as an adult, and I didn't realize it was a struggle. The first time was when I got into an altercation with my father, and I stayed a couple days there. And then, the second time was when my landlord actually took me to court, and I couldn't really be there. And I was working that day that he actually took me to court. And I guess I failed to show up, and I just wished that I never came back. I think a couple months later, moving back there to live there again because I felt like my landlord at the time didn't really trust me like that. And when I finally moved out of there, it was not that much of an issue at all. I haven't lived in the city of Rochester in about 9 years nearly. And I live near Hilton Hamlin area, and it's just a very different environment from me living in Syracuse because I lived in the ghetto in Rochester and I lived in the ghetto in Syracuse, New York. Despite me living in the east side of Syracuse back when I was like 8 years old, that's really nothing. I was only there for a year, but I lived in the south side most of my life, you know, and it's rough over there on South Salina Street and Midland Avenue. It's really rough there. And I grew up in poor middle class because my mom, she had her own house, and we was able to survive in that house that my mom owned from the time that we was kids. And now when I went there last year on my birthday in August, it's boarded up. I don't know what to say. I was very heartbroken when I saw the conditions of the house, and it really sucks that my family, especially my older siblings, didn't really took care of the house. And I'm afraid that that house is gonna be tore down, especially with my diplomas and stuff in there. And I hope I do something about it because I don't want nobody's stuff to be breaking down into. Like I just hope that never happens. And it just makes me sad to experience that, even witness that, because it costs us money to go through the house and clean stuff in the house, especially hiring the city. I forgot the name for asbestos. When it comes to asbestos, it costs a lot of money for them to clean a house. It costs a lot of money. But I'm sharing you guys my experiences, being homeless, being in homeless shelters, not really having the support that I thought I had, and I didn't really have that much family, to really support me along the way, and I really didn't really have my father there to help me, be strong and not be feeling miserable. And I have to say, living in homeless shelters with a lot of men there is just very frightening. And I just don't like living in an environment with a bunch of men there because many of them probably feel that you looking at them a certain type of way, especially me being gay. You know what I mean? And I am not bothered whatsoever. But it was just, a very comfortable time me being at a men's shelter because I'm a man myself, but it was just very uncomfortable me, being there, back in 2010 and being there early 2012. It's just nerve wracking, being there and not really having that much support. But at least the homeless shelter fed me. Their food was good, but it wasn't the best compared to home cooked meals and whatever. But I feel like I survived, and I feel like I did very good. Me being there twice in my life, and I wasn't in homeless shelters as a kid, not at all. But as a 22-year-old and 24-year-old, oh my gosh, that was rough. That was really rough, and I pray to God that I won't ever have to experience that type of life ever again in my life. And I'm just pray to God that I have a better future, and just be confident, and just don't let nothing bring me down. And I will never let family bring me down. And a lot of people don't even know that situation with my father happened at all. And I don't know if I'm going to say something about it, but that situation was very frightening, and don't ever want to go through something like that ever again, because because I believe that my father was gay or bi, because the way that he treated me back then and was mocking me the whole entire time. It was just very frustrating, but we did get into a physical altercation, and I just don't believe in putting my hands on my parents, especially one that didn't really raise me like that. And he didn't really help me, with my mom's passing, help me grieve. And it was just a total game for him instead of me, because my life was at stake. My life, I was in total danger, you know what I mean? And I just didn't want to get killed, and it was just a lot for me to take in. And this was 10, 11 years ago, and I'm very happy that I was able to live and witness it and be able to talk to I was able to talk to it. I was able to talk about it to you guys, and be able to reminisce about it, and not let it drive me crazy or let it drag me apart, because I'm not going to let nothing like that drag me apart. But I have to say, I'm not perfect. I'm a survivor, and I was able to talk about it and live through it and talk about it to you guys, to tell you my life story and so forth and like that. All right, you guys. Peace and love to everybody. You guys have a very good day, night, evening, afternoon, wherever you guys at in this globe. All right. Good day, people, and peace to all.